What's up, guys? You are listening to the YVR REMO Show, where we talk all things Vancouver real estate and mortgages, take boring topics and make them interesting. Make sure to stay tuned to listen to everything you need to know how to put cash back in your pocket, create wealth in real estate, and simplify the complicated. Well, welcome to the show, Mr. Jason Simard. How are you doing today, sir?
Good, my friend. Thanks for having me on.
We've got Jason Simard here today, very special guest out of, believe it or not, Nanaimo. So as a second guest in a few months from Nanaimo. Who would have ever guessed? Jason comes from us. He is the leader and founder of Sims Real Estate Group, and also leading a really unique system outside of that called Sims Coaching Systems. Is that right, Jason?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, really quickly, Sims Real Estate Group, I think we know what that is. You're a real estate company focused on taking care of people in the Nanaimo and surrounding areas, I believe. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. Yep, we've got
what's Sims Coaching Systems really quickly before we dive in?
So we actually mentor and coach agents all throughout North America, actually globally, but we basically teach them the same systems that we've built in our real estate practice. So we were, fortunate to create a system that worked exceptionally well in our marketplace, and we were able to build quite a successful real estate team. And we've taken those systems and been able to kind of mentor and coach other agents to set that up for themselves.
Awesome, man. So for anybody listening to this show right now, I'm wondering, why are we bringing Jason on? I think the answer to that is twofold. Jason he started real estate in November of 2015. He's only been doing it for about 5 years now, just about 5 years. And in that timeline, he's not only built a successful business on his own, but grown to a team of, how many people is it now, Jason?
So in our team right now, total, I believe we have 14 people all together in the team right now.
14 people, and selling hundreds of homes every year, having a fantastic year in 2020. And I think, Jason, the reason that we brought you on today was to talk a little bit about what you guys are doing to transition through real estate in the last few years and why you're having so much success, both from a consumer standpoint and what a consumer should be looking for, but also there's a lot of people who listen to our show who are in the real estate space, and I think they really appreciate some feedback and upfront honesty on like what types of things that you've done, whether it's from a mental standpoint or just physically what you've done to grow and see success in your business the way that you've done it. So really pumped that you could join us today. So, hey, Jason, I just want to walk people back and give them just a brief overview of your career trajectory. You've certainly answered this question a few times in the past on a few interviews on YouTube. And you have a really interesting history working in the credit union and the banking sector for a period of time. So just give us a little bit of a broad overview of what you did then and where you were located before you jumped into real estate.
Yeah, sure. So I spent 11 years in the financial industry. 7 of those years I was a bank manager. I worked at credit unions. I worked at a national bank. And so for me, one of my key advantages that I've had since I've been in real estate is the fact that I understand credit and I understand your world, and I understand the importance of having strategic partnerships in that world and having brilliant people like yourself that understand credit, how to properly set clients up for success. So having worked closely with probably hundreds, maybe thousands of files in my career prior to getting into real estate, understanding what different areas that deals could come from, that's helped me a lot, obviously. I also spent a couple of years in the internet marketing world, learning actually what are some of the strategies that some of the highest producing agents are using in North America, as far as lead gen systems, marketing systems. And so that knowledge that I took set me up for success. So I came in with a different mindset than most realtors.
You know years in advance that you were going to get into this real estate situation, or was this just like what happened? Where do you find out about making that decision, and what made you go from the safe banking world, which almost no one leaves when they get to the management position, and jump into completely what's considered often a very, very, very busy market of people who saturated market, I should say, of real estate agents that people typically don't look up on?
Yeah. So number one, I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. And so sitting in a bank and, my friends and my family are like, oh, you've made it or whatever. And I never felt like I did. I felt like I had golden handcuffs and I was settling. And that was just me. Again, I'm not anybody that's listening who's a bank manager. I'm not saying that you're settling. I'm talking about me and me personally. Like I had this entrepreneurial spirit that I wanted to foster, and being in a box and kind of running things the way somebody else wanted and not having any creative say on the direction of what we're doing ultimately just kind of I have to say that I felt like I was sort of like a robot for me, and it just wasn't my personality. And so I always knew that I was capable of something greater and that I wanted to make a bigger impact in people's lives. And so that's when I made a drastic change and I actually left banking altogether. You know, when you show up on Monday and it's your least favorite day of the week, it's usually when you know that you're not in the right place anymore. And so Monday's been my favorite day of the week for probably almost 5 years since I've been running my own business. And so that's been a nice, refreshing thing. You know, when you walk into work and you have anxiety because you're just like, ugh, you know, that feeling, I haven't had that in a long time. You know, I've had different anxieties and stresses running businesses and stuff, but it's much more rewarding and freeing. So did I have a plan? It was probably months out of necessity. So I worked in the consulting world, was forced due to a silly non-compete, which I won't get into the details, but I was forced to kind of like start my own real estate company or do something else. And so for me, I was like, okay, well, life's kicked me in the butt. I'm at my lowest point financially. I need to go and rise above this, and I need to go bet on myself. And so I started Sims Real Estate Group. I founded a plan and, you know, had a vision that I would start the business, exit production within 5 years, which a lot of people are like, what do you mean exit production within 5 years? Well, I wanted to build a system where people could thrive and do exceptionally well that would allow me to step into a role where I am today, where I can create other income streams, other businesses where I can support our agents and basically create their pension plan. Real estate, believe it or not, is one of the industries that has no pension plan. There's generally no benefits. There's usually no exit strategy. So for me, I wanted to change that. And I'll start with a decision, my friend. I had to make a decision and I had to go all in on myself and you know, take some risk and just shatter those golden handcuffs that I had.
So let's go back to the beginning. Fantastic explanation and breakdown, Jason, of your story and why you took that leap and where you're at today. And first thing I want to recognize immediately is the vision. So you had a vision. It was clear. You have a series of goals. I mean, I think it's tough even 5 years ago for myself to envision where I was and am today. Looking at your first year in the business, you were able to close 90 sales, I believe. Is that correct? Within
very first year in the business, actually, we set up 135 sales.
Okay. So an astronomical number. And were most of these people, people that you knew from the past, people that met you online, where did most of these people come from that decided to call this first brand new agent?
I would say 98, 99% of the people that I did business with in that first year, they were complete strangers to me when I first met them.
Awesome. So really interesting to hear that, because I don't know if I'd trust somebody who started 3 months ago jumping into the business, but clearly you're very good at building that connection. And that's a huge testament to obviously where people are looking to purchase real estate right now, which is a big part of what I wanted to talk to you about today. So really quickly, how big is the town of Nanaimo, Jason? Like how many people are in Nanaimo and surrounding areas? Do you have any idea?
Just under 90,000 people in Nanaimo. And I think if you add sort of like the surrounding areas, you know, you're probably looking at about 150,000 people total.
Okay. And do you have any idea, like annually, again, this is a on the fly question, so if you don't know the answer right now, roughly how many transactions occur on an annual basis in Nanaimo and surrounding areas? Do you know?
Well, I don't know with all the surrounding areas, but in Nanaimo, it probably fluctuates between 1,500 and just under 2,000 transactions a year.
So almost a 10%, so about a 7 to 10% market share in the first year. That's pretty insane. So that says a lot to me about how people are shopping and looking for real estate. And obviously with what's just transpired in the last year with regards to the COVID crisis and shutdown and the way that people are operating right now, we're seeing more and more people start to make the move to being more comfortable online, although we do see still a lot of offline elements. So why do you think, like, first and foremost, like, why do you think you were able to, in your position, assist so many families and help so many families through this online source that maybe other agents in the area weren't during the timeline? And I have a follow-up question, but I'll leave that one there first and foremost.
Well, I mean, number one, I was willing to outwork everybody. So that didn't hurt, right? Like I was willing to put in the work and have proactive real estate conversations daily. And I hired a really smart assistant 3 weeks into the business who had 8 years experience. That was helpful. Having been on the other side of the transaction, that was a huge advantage for me. So by having an assistant who could provide and fill in some of the gaps in those early days of what I didn't know, having some strong mentorship with agents in my market area, that helped. but I was willing to outwork everybody. So I knew how to generate an abundance of opportunities where I could have conversations. And I knew if I always kept it focused on the relationship and never on the transaction, that I would move things in the right direction. So there's some details that I did. I created a 1-page business plan, which was very strategic. I picked 3 marketing pillars where I focused all of our attention and resources. So I didn't get shiny object syndrome where I wouldn't be distracted chasing new different opportunities. Because in real estate, we're one of the most heavily marketed to group on the planet, right? So you have to keep in mind that realtors are notorious for constantly trying to find new ways to create business. And the truth is, if you can just pick 2 or 3 things and really stick to that and create a measurable activity plan, which is focusing on what you can control, which is, picking up the phone, texting, building relationships, finding key strategic partnerships like the one that we have with Thrive. That is a great way to kind of kickstart things. So my actions, I probably was 10xing what the average realtor was doing. So that helped me be able to fast track things. Plus I brought in leverage at key points in the business too. And most people would never hire an assistant 3 weeks into it, being brand new. But for me, I knew that my return on time would be far greater doing higher income producing activities, serving clients with real estate. And then I could leverage out some of the areas, which would be a $20 an hour or less task, and have people help me. So from a business standpoint, your return on time is critical.
So keeping with that online theme that we started the conversation off with there, you mentioned that a huge group, in fact, almost everyone in that first year's time frame found you some way, shape, or form, or didn't know about you before. And so I imagine you were sourcing these relationships through online, and you don't have to tell us exactly, how they found you or whatnot. But was there any common theme to why these people were searching online, and how you were able to convert cold relationship that had no referral or nothing like that into someone that was going to trust you with what's commonly someone's biggest transaction of their entire life? So what were you doing that was unique, and why were people able to make to trust you during that?
Well, number one, I was pretty smart. I was pretty smart at what I did. I understood our market. I understood the area. I was born and raised here. I specifically targeted people that were moving from out of town in the first year. So while everybody was focusing on trying to get local relationships, I was focusing on those out of town relationships, because I knew 2 things. Number one, they needed somebody like me on the inside who knows the area. So when I get to know their needs and their wants, I could actually really highly recommend the right areas they're going to suit their families. So that was critical, is that local knowledge, having been born and raised here. That was critical. The second thing that I knew that with online leads was that I could have an abundance of opportunities. So I could have something like my phone that I can pick up and I can reach out and connect with people. And so 92% of home buyers and sellers start their quest on the internet. Google and Bing are the 2 most popular places that people start their searches. So 93% of search traffic online is Google. The other 7% roughly is Bing. So that was a great place for me to focus and drive traffic. And through my internet marketing experience, I knew exactly how to drive that traffic to our website and connect with more buyers and sellers through that. That's kind of my simplistic version of it.
So from November to today, obviously in the last 9 or 10 months, have you noticed the way that people are searching for homes change dramatically in that timeline, or not at all? Are their locations?
People searching homes today is still online, right? Everybody has a computer in their pocket. Right? Everybody's addicted to these computers. I mean, how many hours does the average person spend on their phone? It's insane. It's actually mind blowing when you look at how much time is spent there. And so it hasn't changed. If anything, more and more people are utilizing these devices to run their lives. So it's pretty common practice now that you're going to meet people through the internet. It's crazy to say this, Alex, but like I know some really attractive people that are dating online. And 15 years ago, that would be like a taboo and be like, I'd never date online. 20 years ago, that would have never happened. And today, really attractive people that if they just went and started a conversation with single people, I bet you would have no problem getting dates, but they're going online.
Right. So it is interesting. And I think it's just more of a comfort level, obviously, with the information that you can gather through an online source. So thinking back for someone, we just did an episode recently on relocation on the podcast, and we talked about how frequently we're seeing people make the move up to the interior, to other parts of Canada, to the island, to teams like yours. And And with that being said, the traditional method of finding a real estate agent in those areas is you would ask maybe a local real estate agent that you trust for someone's name in these areas. That would be one very common way, or you would maybe just call them in other different ways. In other different ways by searching, like you said, online. Have you noticed a shift from the amount of people that are talking to their agents and asking for an introduction to just straight up jumping on Google, finding your website and calling you guys? Has that changed?
Well, I think people are trusting online reviews a lot more than they ever have, right? If you're going to pick between two hotels, what's the first thing you're going to do if you're looking at two hotels online? You're going to look at their reviews, right? That's kind of the world that we live in. So having a strong online presence makes sense as a realtor, right? It really does. And so for us, it's not that people are necessarily just calling us. Yes, our referral business has grown exponentially and we get a lot of introductions, and that certainly helped. But we have proactive systems in play where we're constantly getting new buyers and sellers on a regular basis. We're constantly putting strong marketing out there that's drawing people into the right areas. And so we have 3 key pillars: social media, internet leads, and our repeat and referral business. And that's kind of been the foundation to our company since day one. So yeah, we meet a lot of people through the internet. It's just logical in 2020. That's how a lot of people meet each other. And the great thing is we still have those soft skills that are super important, right? So we're kind of lucky that a lot of us are from that Zennial generation. We're not millennials. We're not Generation X, right? We're right in the middle. So like, I remember a time as a kid where there was no computers and there was no phones. So I had to develop those soft skills, and I'd be playing outside and meeting new people and new kids. And so I developed those early soft skills, but I was young enough where phones and technology and the internet was introduced at an early age, where I learned how to use those tools to my advantage. So I feel like we're one of the most lucky generations because we still understand the baby boomers and that whole EQ side of things and those personal relationships and have that work ethic, but we also get the tech side so we can connect with the younger demographic too. So I do feel that we're very fortunate to kind of be born in that, late 70s, early 80s.
Awesome, man. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It's funny to hear someone say like, well, we got to school, we didn't have cell phones, but it's true. I didn't have an iPhone until I was in college, I should say. So looking back, right now, I mean, one of the things that we covered in our conversation that you shared a lot of knowledge is about the fact that you have a team and there's a team approach. And, I think I want to talk from a consuming standpoint. If you're a consumer listening to this, right? Like I find that there's kind of the battle where an agent who's on their own will say, hey, listen, if you're working with a team, you're not going to get the personalized support and you'll get passed around. Whereas a consumer who's talking to a team will say, hey, you're not going to get X, like the personalized service. So I mean, what is your mindset on that team-based approach? Do you think this is something that we'll continue to see a lot of both opportunities, or are we going to be more like in the US where we've seen a lot of teams really come to prevalence and support clients more like a business versus just running an independent agency? Because we're almost going back like 30, 40 years ago in the real estate space. It actually was pretty common to run like a company or a team. And then it went to independent agent and then back to team again. Is this a sign for the future? And is it better for a consumer? Is it better for a consumer is the question.
Yeah, my personal opinion is I think a consumer is going to get more value with a team because it's like you have a team of specialists that all play a key role in the transaction. Where as a single agent, I hate to say this, but you have to be a jack of all trades and you're usually a master of none, right? You cannot give world-class value and service if you're spread too thin. And so you're going to have to really dramatically reduce the number of clients that you serve in order to do that. Well, then that's going to take a hit to you financially, which doesn't allow you to maybe put in the extra marketing dollars to get the extra attention on your client's home, for example. So with a team, we kind of treat it like a high performing doctor practice where you have specialists, like you have your knee surgeon, you have the surgeon that works and operates on the brain that specializes in that area. Or think of it like a law firm, right? Everybody has their specific area that they really practice and excel in. So we have the same thing. We have our admin team. Their job is to make sure that all the compliance and paperwork is done perfect, right? We have our agents who handle a lot of buyer transactions. So they specialize on understanding that side of the business, and they're doing the risk management. They know the market, they know the inventory, they know the pricing. We have our listing specialists. So, when it comes to listing a property, we have very strategic systems that have proven to outperform the market over and over and over, right? We've got our inside sales agent team or our client care department, and they're critical in the process because what they're doing is they're licensed and they're working behind the scenes to make sure when you have a question, it's getting answered quickly. If you need to get in to see a property, they're on it. If you need extra paperwork or information about a property, they're there, and we have 7-day-a-week coverage. So for every client that works with us, you have your main lead agent, but that lead agent is able to do what they do best and make sure that you're well supported by having our admin team and our client care team working behind the scenes to service you as a client. So you have specialists at every facet. It's kind of like a well-oiled machine, to be honest with you. And it's why we get so many raving fan club members and people that are introducing us to their friends and their family because they're really feeling the elevated experience. And that's, for me, that's here to stay. As long as teams are building themselves the right way, where they're focusing on providing more value to the consumer than they're receiving in payment. And that's always been our focus, not only for our clients, but also for the agents that we serve as well.
Okay. So that's a really good explanation. I think that's very fair. And we talk about that all the time in what we do. I mean, in the lending space, obviously we cover a broad array of different items when it comes to our clients, and quite a bit of either documentation, conversations, communication all throughout the entire process. And, we also explain to them, listen, my primary expertise is to advise and provide information. I have team members to support that, and they're the best at what they do. And if I'm wasting my time, or if I'm spending my time, I should say, doing things that aren't the best for you, then you're going to get subpar service. And I can appreciate that 100%. You wouldn't ask your doctor, as an example, to do something that maybe the administrative staff can do, help you set up an appointment, right? So with that in mind, again, kind of a focus moving forward here into end of 2020 and 2021. Let's talk a little bit about the market, what you've seen right now. I know you have your boots to the ground still. You're still talking actively with agents. You still work with your team on a regular basis. So, are we, again, let's just talk a little bit market predictions. What are we yet to see? I mean, we've already noticed a huge shift of people making the move from big cities into smaller towns with more space at lower cost. Do you think this shift continues moving forward for the next 6 to 12 months, or is this a short-term drift?
No, I actually think that the way that people run businesses going forward is probably been dramatically impacted and changed by COVID. I don't think there's a single company that's sitting out there right now thinking, how can we get more bricks and mortar space? How can we pile a bunch of people working in the same office space? I think they're all figuring out, how can we run a more lean and mean and efficient operation and allow people the ability to work from home. And so that is a trend that's not going to go backwards. It's going to continue to move forwards, in my opinion. I think companies are going to find ways to be more competitive. And really, one of the worst costs as a business is office space, because it doesn't generate any income. And if people can be more efficient working from home, and there's actual studies that support this, and we've seen it in our own business, where our staff members are able to actually be more efficient working from home. There's less office distractions. They have a little bit more creative control on when they work their hours, which has been nice for them. It's easier to accommodate life events, less sickness in the office too, because you have less people interacting with each other. So I think it's going to continue. And I think if you're sitting in a major market right now, I'm just going to pick on Vancouver. You're sitting in Vancouver and you're buying a condo, a 1-bedroom condo, and it's costing you, say, $500,000. You'd be hard pressed not to evaluate your living situation if you're able to work from home and say, hey, what kind of quality of life could I have in a place like Nanaimo, for example? It's 20 minutes away, has all the facilities you need. You're 20-minute float plane away from Vancouver. What can I get for $500,000? Well, I can get a full single-family home where I can actually have a yard and some space, and my cost of living is lower. I can still maintain a good income because I'm working from home. So we are definitely, I believe, going to see this trend continue. And I think it's going to continue to fuel some of those lower price markets. Because look, if you had options, Alex, of where you can live anywhere in the world, but you had the ability to choose anywhere, you're going to look at the cost, number one. You're going to look at the lifestyle. You're going to see what you can get what bang you can get for your dollar. And I think that is going to ultimately influence where you go. So we're seeing that trend, and I think it's here to stay. I don't think interest rates are going up anytime soon. I think what's fueling, the economy not being as I mean, the economy is bad for a lot of people, but it's one of those things where it's either really good for people or it's really bad. It's kind of like there's not much in between right now is what we're seeing. So what's propping up the recovery right now is the housing market. And so keeping interest rates low, I believe, is going to be something that's going to stay for at least a couple of years, maybe 2 to 3 years, while we kind of get this pandemic under control. And I don't think we're going to have that under control in the next 6 months. I don't even think we'll have it in years.
Yeah, it certainly could be a while, and I can't disagree with what you said about the interest rates staying where they are, and the fact that we are propping up the economy with that. So really quickly on that, I just want to just some commentary, and feel free to jump in there as well. And while I do agree with you, I think the Canadian dream for so many people, whether they're from Canada or from other cities, has always been a house with the yard with the kids, or some more space. Like, that is the Canadian dream. And to your point, I think there's no doubt we are going to see a continued a group of people who are evaluating their price point decision. But the one thing that I found really interesting, I was looking for research. I was looking all over the internet for research, and this actually was a few months ago I was digging into this, but the closest comparison that I could find on the impact of the housing market from a major pandemic or similar pandemic was back in Japan. And again, this is a few months ago. It was like 2003 when they had the H1N1. And they talked about the impact on the housing market in Japan. And I don't know if that's a direct comparable because they don't necessarily have the space that Canada has anyways. But they did talk about how that actually did not negatively impact condensed housing, and the price points of Japan over time went up. Now, I guess there's a few things to consider. Is first and foremost the amount of space that they have just in general, and whether or not they had the ability to work remote back then. I would argue they probably didn't have the same opportunities. They maybe had to still hop on a train or something like that. Where I'm curious again is, does Vancouver continue to see that continued growth in those areas and maybe bounce back that way? Or to your point, is it just a full-on scatter out? I think it's probably going to be a balance of the two, but where it may hurt is some of the smaller cities outside of Vancouver. Hard to say. Any commentary on that or thoughts?
You know what? It's going to be interesting to see, right? Like, if you look how people live in different parts of the world, it's interesting what different cultures value, right? Like, for example, Japan, you brought it up. Well, there's a lot of people that are in these cities that are very condensed, and that's kind of a normal way to live. Look at China. China has, like, our most populated cities in North America. I don't even know if they'd be in the top 10 in China. Like, there's literally people that flock to cities and they look for that type of living. Whereas in Canada, the dream is usually like to go and have like a house with a yard and a little extra space. And like, we're very lucky, even at Vancouver. I mean, it's not that populated for the size of the city in comparison to how some people live in other parts of the world. So I think it's going to be interesting. I think there's always going to be a demand for a city like Vancouver that has beautiful coastal mountains, has the diversity that it has, and there's definitely a lot of job and employment there. So I think that's going to be desirable. However, I have to say that there's going to be some pretty attractive opportunities for more affordably priced markets for people that have the option. If you're forced to go to work downtown Vancouver, all right, well, that's maybe not a possibility. But if all of a sudden now your work's like, look, you can work from home, which means you can live from anywhere. As long as you have reliable internet and you've set up a proper space for you, we don't care where you live anymore. You don't need to come to the office. I would say that those people would not, they're not sitting there thinking, oh, we're going to stay in Vancouver. I bet you if they're renting right now and they're like, hey, could we afford to buy? Let's go and check out some of these other markets. Vancouver Island happens to be absolutely gorgeous. The Okanagan happens to be gorgeous. So like, these different markets, I do think will benefit from people having options. Does it mean that everybody's going to flood away? No. But look at what's happening in New York, right? New York is seeing the opposite effect of other markets. They're starting to see their prices come down because a lot of people are fleeing the big city now that they have options, and they're looking for other priced markets that are more affordable, right? Rents are adjusting in New York, which they've needed to because the cost of rent has gotten out of control there. And so I've got clients, for example, in Utah, which has really affordable housing. They're seeing a huge increase. We're seeing the same thing in places like Florida. So it's really fascinating. Montana, I've got people that I partner with in Montana, of all places, right? Beautiful place. Well, a lot of people are starting to move there from California because the prices are too high. Now that they're able to work from home, they're like, I can have the wilderness and all these amazing things, and the housing is like half the price. I'm in. So I think you're going to see that trend continue. I'm not saying it's doom and gloom for people living in the big city, but if you were an investor or if you were somebody looking for a better lifestyle, You probably are going to look at different markets that are a little more affordable, where you can have more of the so-called Canadian or American dream, right?
So to that point really quickly as we kind of end, we have a few more minutes here, but you brought up as an investor, you're suggesting that an investor who's thinking about getting into the market should be looking at one of these quote unquote smaller towns that are ready to boom. Or is that what you're suggesting?
I think you'd be hard pressed not to look at those, right? I think you need to look at those. You got to look at what can you get for your return on capital, right? If you're having to drop $1 million for a place in Vancouver and it doesn't even cash flow, but you can drop, say, 500,000 on something that's going to generate a cash flow for you, that's obviously a no-brainer, right? So you have to go where it makes sense. Take a look at what the trends are. You know, what are the things that bring people to the area? Is it just employment, or is there more to it? Like, for example, Vancouver Island is a beautiful retirement destination. So we're able to attract people who want a better quality of life. Maybe they grew up in the prairies, and not to put the prairies down, but you know, it's not going to be as scenic and as beautiful as Vancouver Island, where we have the coastal mountains, where you can go surfing and snowboarding in the same weekend, right? Where can you do that anywhere else in Canada? There are very, very few places. We have accessibility to the mainland. So if I want to be in Vancouver, I can literally drive 5 minutes from my house right now, get on a float plane, and I'd be downtown in 20 minutes to meet up with you. So in less than an hour, I could be in Vancouver and come hang out with you.
Perfect. Faster than me from my office. So
yeah. So like, how cool is that we have those opportunities? And again, I'm able to have a beautiful home and a good lifestyle for my family in a community that overall is very safe, you know, has lots of nature trails. So it's really a no-brainer. And I have abundance of choices when it comes to restaurants and things like that too. So yeah, I'd like to think that, you know, it's not just a fad. I think more and more people are going to reevaluate where they live. And I think a lot of the resources that would go to traveling is going to go back into home improvements, or people looking to upgrade and say, you know what, maybe we're not going to travel as much. So we're seeing a big boom right now with secondary properties. I just purchased one myself because, you know, the cost on it was really affordable, and it allows me to create memories with my family. So I think some of the Gulf islands here around Vancouver Island too are going to see an increase in demand, because people are looking for local escapes where they can go and create memories. And instead of going to, you know, Italy, they're probably going to be like, hey, what's a cool place that I can explore in BC? And it makes sense.
It should be really interesting to see the next couple of years. Hey, I want to kind of throw you on the spot here as we close out the show here, and talk a little bit about mindset really quickly. Just one or two tidbits that you want to share with our listeners right now. I found that a lot of people who listen to our show are people who have a goal of owning their first property, or their first investment property, or are in the real estate space, and they're learning how to get better. You talked really quickly about how you were willing to work harder than a lot of people in at least from what you could tell from other people, not to put anyone down in this space. And you had a clear objective of doing that. Is there anything you want to leave with the people here as to how you develop that mindset and how you continue to keep that mindset on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis? Anything that you could share there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you need to have some internal motivation and passion for what you're doing. That's why I left the golden handcuffs, because the passion wasn't there. I needed something that fulfilled me deep, that would drive me and motivate me to want to push hard, push through the rejection that you face in life. So for somebody that's looking to buy a home and it feels like it's out of reach, start with a simple plan, right? Like maybe start paying yourself first. So instead of like paying everything else on payday, start by paying yourself first. Start with 5% of your income, then bump it up to 10% and bump it up to 15%. I bought my first place when I was 19 years old. It's when I was working at the bank. I remember it clearly. I was making $29,500 a year, which is not a ton of money, right? But what I did is I went and picked up a pizza delivery job at night so that I could continue to pay myself first, so I could stick to my goal. And that's how I came up with my down payment. And it was a plan. It was discipline. I was willing to forego certain luxuries, and I didn't go and have all the nicest clothes, but I had a plan. Every payday, I paid myself first. I'd have it automatically come off my paycheck and go into an account, and I would just build that up. And so I wasn't making enough money to support my plan. So I went and picked up another job. And that's what I did. And that sort of gave me that resourcefulness to make it happen. So if you really want something, get resourceful. Start talking to different mentors in your life and qualify those people the right way. But there's always a way you can get what you want, as long as you're willing to put in the effort and be resourceful. And so again, I'm blessed to make considerably more than that now, but I remember those humble beginnings and I remember what I had to do to get myself ahead. And so as long as it's not breaking values and ethics, figure out a way, and it's there. Right?
That was awesome, Jason. I really appreciate that. You have a similar piece of feedback that someone earlier in the show who's had a lot of success as well had as well, which was basically willing to do the grind and then set that goal. And you put it differently. I love this. Pay yourself first. Big giant quote. So we're gonna get that all over the place. Hey, Jason Simard, the Sims Real Estate Group and Sims Coaching Systems, I should say. He is available online. Check him out on Facebook. Do you have a specific place you want to send people to, Jason?
Sure. I mean, if you're an agent and you're looking to level up in your business, we're always looking to collaborate and help people. Check out our Sims Coaching Systems page. We've got a Sims Mastermind page on Facebook, which is great. There's lots of valuable content that we're putting out there for free all the time to help agents. We've got some amazing systems. We've got great coaching and training. So that's something for you. If you're a consumer and you're looking to transact and buy real estate, maybe you're looking for investment opportunities on Vancouver Island, maybe you're looking to relocate here because you want a better lifestyle. We have some amazing agents that not only play here, they live here, they raise their families here. And we understand the market inside and out, being the highest producing team in the marketplace. We can give you a lot of inside scoops. We collaborate really well with agents. And for us, it was really important that we built our business the right way by having good relationships and never getting blood on our hands. So we'd be honored to help you guys in any way, shape, or form.
Perfect. So make sure to contact Jason. And to our point, our team at Thrive here is 100% remote and helping people all over BC and the country. Jason Simard, thank you so much for joining me today, sir, in the middle of the afternoon. I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure our guests got a lot of value. Appreciate you folks for listening. Make sure to rate the show, 5 stars, of course, and we'll see you next time.